He wanted 4 things. That was it. 4 things. Before Mike Evans would sign his name on any contract, before he would leave Tampa Bay for the first time in 12 years, before he would walk away from the franchise that drafted him 7th overall in 2014 and made him their all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns, he sat down and made a list. A quarterback he believed in, a chance at a Super Bowl, a top-shelf offensive coordinator, and the promise of high-volume touches. 4 things. The Cleveland Browns could check exactly one of those boxes. 1. And when the dust settled on the most dramatic opening week of NFL free agency in recent memory, Mike Evans, the 6-time Pro Bowler, the future Hall of Famer, the man who set an NFL record by surpassing 1,000 receiving yards in 11 consecutive seasons, was not in Cleveland. He was in San Francisco. Signed to a 3-year deal worth up to $60.4 million with the San Francisco 49ers, a franchise that competes for championships every year and plays behind a quarterback named Brock Purdy, who has never lost a regular season game when he has had more than 1 week to prepare. And Shedeur Sanders, the 22-year-old 5th-round pick, sitting at the top of the Cleveland Browns depth chart with a new head coach and a new offensive line and the weight of an entire franchise's hopes on his shoulders, did not get his wide receiver 1. The one receiver who knew Todd Monken's system from memory, the one receiver who had already produced back-to-back Pro Bowl seasons under Monken's coaching in Tampa. The one receiver who would have walked into Cleveland and given Shedeur Sanders the kind of elite number 1 target that every young quarterback needs to take the next step. He is gone. He chose San Francisco. He chose a Super Bowl contender over a rebuild. And now the question that every Cleveland Browns fan is sitting with on this Friday morning, March 13th, 2026, is the same question it always comes back to in this city. Is this enough? Is what they have enough? Can Shedeur Sanders, at 22 years old, with the wide receiver room they are building and the offensive line they have assembled and the head coach they have hired, actually make this work? Or did losing Mike Evans on day 1 of free agency reveal something uncomfortable about where this franchise really stands? This is the full story. Mike Evans, his entire journey, why he chose San Francisco over Cleveland, what it means for Shedeur Sanders, what the Browns do next, and the honest answer to whether this team can actually compete in 2026. To understand why the Cleveland Browns losing Mike Evans matters as much as it does, why it is not just a free agency miss, but a window into the genuine challenges of this rebuild, you have to start with who Mike Evans is. Not the statistics, not the contract numbers, the person, the player, where he came from and what he became, and why a team that gets him gets something that cannot be replicated anywhere in the free agent market.
Michael Lynn Evans III was born on August 21, 1993, in Galveston, Texas. He grew up in a household shaped by both strong family bonds and devastating tragedy. His mother, Heather Kilgore, gave birth to him when she was just 14 years old. His father, Mickey Evans, physically abused his mother throughout Evans' early childhood. When Evans was 9 years old, his maternal uncle, enraged by the abuse his sister had endured, murdered Mickey. Evans grew up without a father. He grew up with that story in his background. And he grew up in Galveston, a Gulf Coast city in Texas, where the humidity is relentless and the opportunities for a kid with raw athletic talent but limited resources are real but not guaranteed. He attended Ball High School in Galveston, where the coaching staff initially noticed him more as a basketball player than a football prospect. He was tall, fluid, and had the kind of natural coordination that translates across sports, the ability to time a jump, to position a body, to win a contested ball at its highest point. Those are basketball skills. They are also the exact skills that make an elite wide receiver, specifically an elite red zone receiver, specifically the kind of receiver who wins back shoulder fades, who boxes out linebackers the way a power forward boxes out centers, who goes up for a football at the 1-yard line in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl and comes down with it while two defensive backs fight to stop him. Mike Evans did not learn how to high point a football. He was born knowing how to high point a ball, and Ball High School's football staff was smart enough to recognize that. He committed to Texas A&M, where he played for head coach Kevin Sumlin in an offense that featured what was then the most electric quarterback in college football, Johnny Manziel. And in 2013, Evans' junior season at Texas A&M, with Manziel throwing him the football and the entire country watching, Evans broke the school record with 69 receptions for 1,394 receiving yards. That number, 1,394, is not a statistic, it is a declaration. A third-year college receiver in the Southeastern Conference, one of the most physically demanding and defensively sophisticated conferences in college football, posting over 1,300 yards while breaking a school record at a program that has produced some of the finest receivers in NFL history. The entire league took notice, and on January 2nd, 2014, Evans declared for the NFL draft. Every scouting service ranked him as a top 2 wide receiver in the class. Multiple mock drafts had him going inside the top 5. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected him with the 7th overall pick. He signed a 4-year, $14.6 million rookie contract on June 12th, and in his very first NFL game, in his very first regular season, as a 20-year-old rookie facing professional defensive backs for the first time in his life, Evans posted 5 receptions, 37 yards, and set the tone for what was coming. By the end of that rookie season, he had 68 receptions for 1,051 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. As a rookie in the NFL, at 20 years old, he was named to the All-Rookie team. He set multiple franchise records in his first season, and what he did next, what he built over the following decade, is one of the most extraordinary sustained performances in the history of the position.
11 consecutive seasons with 1,000 or more receiving yards. 11. Every single year from the moment he set foot on an NFL field as a rookie in 2014 through the 2024 season. Not 9, not 10, 11. Tied with Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver in the history of professional football, for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons in NFL history. And Evans did it through 4 offensive coordinators, 9 different starting quarterbacks, 3 head coaches, a Super Bowl run, and every conceivable variation of offensive system that an NFL team deploys over the course of a decade. He was the constant. Everything around him changed. He stayed. And every year, without exception, the result was the same. Over 1,000 yards. Every year. 6 Pro Bowl selections, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2021, 2023, 2024. Second team All-Pro in 2016 and 2023. 108 career touchdown receptions, 10th all-time in NFL history. 13,052 career receiving yards, already one of the 40 most prolific receivers in the history of the sport, and he still has football left. Super Bowl LV champion, playing a critical role in Tom Brady's first season in Tampa Bay, when the Buccaneers became the first team in NFL history to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium. He is, without any reasonable debate, a first-ballot Hall of Famer, the kind of player whose bronze bust in Canton is not a question of if, only when. And then 2025 happened, and for the first time in 11 years, Mike Evans did not reach 1,000 receiving yards. A hamstring injury cost him 3 games early in the season. Then, in Week 7 against the Atlanta Falcons, Evans simultaneously broke his collarbone and suffered a concussion on a hard fall, one of the more frightening plays of the entire NFL season, and was placed on injured reserve. He returned in Week 15. He finished the year with 30 receptions, 368 yards, and 3 touchdowns across 8 games. Career lows across every major statistical category. And the question that hung over the entire offseason, the question his own agent had to navigate carefully, was whether Mike Evans, at 32 years old, coming off an injury-ravaged season, was the same player who had set NFL records for 11 straight years, or whether 2025 was the beginning of a decline that no amount of talent or willpower could reverse. The market answered that question definitively. Teams offered him north of $27 million per year. The San Francisco 49ers agreed to a 3-year contract worth up to $60.4 million, the second largest deal of his career. The guaranteed portion was $16.3 million. Adam Schefter, on Pat McAfee's show, noted the deal is structured as shorter in real terms than 3 years, meaning the Niners built in ghost years to spread the cap hit while giving Evans the guarantees he needed to leave Tampa. The practical reality is that this is a 1 to 2 year commitment at its core, dressed up as a 3-year deal for cap management purposes, which is exactly what a 32-year-old receiver with a collarbone injury and a concussion history should get from a team that is making a calculated bet, not writing a blank check. And when Evans sat down with reporters at his introductory press conference in Santa Clara, he was direct about why he chose San Francisco over every other option. He said he looked at every contending team that might need a number 1 receiver. He said he researched every potential landing spot. He kept coming back to San Francisco. He talked to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and said the conversation solidified it for him, calling the 49ers a no-brainer. He said it was the best decision for him football-wise. He said he wanted to go somewhere that always competes for championships. And then he said something that should be quoted directly by every Cleveland Browns fan trying to process this loss. He said it gave him a second wind. San Francisco gave Mike Evans a second wind. Cleveland, by implication, did not, could not, was not the kind of destination that makes a 32-year-old Hall of Famer feel like his best football is still ahead of him. That is the honest truth of why the Browns lost Mike Evans. It was not entirely about money. Evans said explicitly that money was not the biggest factor. It was not entirely about Todd Monken, though the Monken connection was real and genuine and gave Cleveland a legitimate shot at the conversation. It was about the 4 things Evans said he wanted: a quarterback he believed in, a chance at a Super Bowl, a top-shelf offensive coordinator, high-volume touches. The Browns had Monken, that is the offensive coordinator box partially checked. They had Jerry Jeudy and a rebuilt offensive line that creates the kind of run game environment where a receiver gets one-on-one coverage and clean routes. But the quarterback he believed in? Shedeur Sanders is 22 years old, has started 7 NFL games, and went 3-4 with 10 interceptions. The chance at a Super Bowl? The Browns went 3-14 combined in the last 2 seasons. The volume? In a run-first Monken offense designed around what he built with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, the wide receivers are not going to see 40 targets in the first 3 months of the season. San Francisco checked all 4 boxes. Cleveland checked 1, maybe 2 in the most generous possible interpretation. And Mike Evans, who spent 12 years being loyal to Tampa Bay, even when Tampa Bay was one of the worst franchises in professional football, was done being loyal to geography when the football equation pointed somewhere else. Now, what does this mean for Shedeur Sanders? Because that is the question that matters most going forward, and it deserves an honest answer.
The Browns ranked 31st in passing yards in 2025, dead last, -1. 1 spot above the absolute bottom of the NFL in air yards moved.
In the 7 games Sanders started, the offensive production was inconsistent at best. He threw for 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns, serviceable numbers for a rookie 5th-round pick learning an NFL offense in real time. But he also threw 10 interceptions, and his supporting cast, the receiver room around him, was the worst in the conference. Jeudy led the team with 602 receiving yards. Cedric Tillman had 270. Isaiah Bond had 338. Beyond Jeudy, nobody on that roster was a legitimate NFL starter by any honest standard. And now, with Mike Evans signed in San Francisco, with the player who knew Todd Monken's system better than any other receiver on the market choosing a Super Bowl contender over a rebuild, the Browns have to find another answer. Andrew Berry has identified multiple paths forward. The Browns have been linked to New Orleans Saints wide receiver Chris Olave, a 25-year-old who posted 844 yards in 2025 after missing time with a concussion, and who represents the kind of young, ascending talent that makes more sense for Cleveland's timeline than a 32-year-old veteran recovering from a collarbone injury. They have also been linked to Arizona Cardinals receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., the 22-year-old first-round pick who was the most physically gifted wide receiver prospect in a decade, and who, if available via trade, would give Shedeur Sanders the kind of elite number 1 target that changes the entire character of an offense overnight. Berry has 2 first-round picks, 6th and 24th overall, in a draft class that includes multiple elite wide receiver prospects, including Ohio State's Carnell Tate and Arizona State's Jordan Tyson. And Berry acknowledged at the NFL Combine that he was actively meeting with top receiver prospects, which means the draft is absolutely in play as a solution to the receiver room problem. But here is what needs to be said plainly. The Cleveland Browns need a wide receiver, not a developmental option, not a depth piece, not a rotational contributor. They need an alpha, a legitimate number 1, a receiver who Shedeur Sanders can trust on 3rd and 8, on 2-minute drills, on 4th and goal from the 3-yard line when the game is on the line and the entire stadium knows the ball is going to that side of the field. Jeudy was that player in 2024. He had 90 receptions for 1,229 yards and a Pro Bowl appearance, and he broke Terrell Owens' record for receiving yards against a former team in a single game. In 2025, he had 50 receptions and 600 yards, the kind of statistical collapse that happens when a receiver is being covered by defenses that have no other threats to account for because the quarterback is a 5th-round rookie and the rest of the wide receiver room is, to borrow the exact word used by the analyst at Dogs by Nature, pathetic. The Browns' season in 2026 does not depend on what Mike Evans decided to do with his career. It depends on what Andrew Berry does in the next 40 days. Whether he finds the receiver that gives Shedeur Sanders the weapon he needs, whether that comes through free agency, Chris Olave, George Pickens, or someone else still on the market. Whether it comes through a trade, Marvin Harrison Jr. from Arizona, or someone similarly talented available for the right combination of picks. Or whether it comes through the draft, using the 6th overall pick on Cam Ward from Miami, which would completely reshape the quarterback competition. Or using the 6th overall pick on the best available wide receiver if Berry decides Sanders is genuinely his guy and the position of greatest need is across from Jeudy. These are the decisions that define franchises. The Browns made the right decisions on the offensive line this week. They made the right decision at linebacker with Quincy Williams. They made the right decision when they hired Todd Monken and gave him the authority to build the offense he wants to build. But none of it, none of the offensive line rebuilding, none of the linebacker signings, none of the coaching hires produces wins in September without a quarterback-receiver combination that can sustain drives, convert 3rd downs, and put points on the board in the 4th quarter when defenses sell out to stop the run. The 49ers got their receiver. They already have their quarterback. They are going back to the NFC Championship game, maybe the Super Bowl, with a Hall of Famer catching footballs from Brock Purdy in Kyle Shanahan's offense. That is the destination Mike Evans chose over Cleveland. And on some level, every honest Browns fan has to acknowledge that the choice was rational. It was not an insult. It was not a statement about the city of Cleveland or its fans or their loyalty or their passion. It was a football decision made by a football player who had one more championship window left in his career and knew exactly which team gave him the best chance to jump through it. The Browns are not that team. Not yet. And the gap between not yet and actually ready is the gap that Andrew Berry has to close. With the draft picks he still has, with the cap space he has left, with the remaining free agents on the market, and with the 42 days between now and the moment he walks to the podium in Green Bay on April 23rd and makes the pick that tells the entire world whether the Cleveland Browns believe in Shedeur Sanders or whether the asterisk is real. Mike Evans chose San Francisco. The Browns' season in 2026 does not end with that decision. It begins now. And what happens next will tell us everything about whether this rebuild is real or just another chapter in the same long story this city has been reading for 26 years.